We come now to our time of Bible study in which we take a look at the various ancient scriptures and books that were written prior to the coming of Jesus, after the coming of Jesus. These are the documents that Christianity looks at to understand more clearly this new world reality, this new faith that has been introduced to the world that they had never known before. And so today we're reading scriptures that help us to understand this idea of a life that is something that is present in our current world, but is also present in the eternal world. It helps us most to understand why Christianity emphasizes this new life and what we're able to see in this new life, whether it's experienced in this world here or in the world to come. So we're turning now to the book of Job, which I imagine has never been read on Easter, perhaps. But there's a passage in there that is very, very on point to what we're looking at today. Of course, you know Job is the story of human suffering, human misery, human difficulty, human despair. It's a great story that helps us to understand a lot about what we are supposed to think and do and believe in the midst of misery, mystery, despair, and all the other things that we experience in this life. And Job was this man who had everything in the world you could ever want, many children, much livestock, rich, doing fine, living the Lord's life. And then God brought upon him a lot of misery and a lot of struggle and a lot of death. All his children died. All his livestock died. He got this horrible skin disease. Everything bad came down on Job. And how was Job going to react to that? That's what God wanted to see. That's what God wanted to understand. How's Job going to react to all of that? And of course, the whole book is about that, and it's a great book, and we should all read it 2 or 3 times, if not more than that, during your life. But today we turn to a passage in which Job, who had gotten to the point now where he wanted to die, he had had so much misery, so much horrible, so much bad stuff that happened in his life. And of course his friends, you don't want to die, you don't want to give it up, you just need to hang in there, hang in there. But Job was like, I have a hope, and he talks about a hope that he has, and that's what we hear about here today. And I'll read that to you, but keep in mind that this is Job's speech to his friends who have said, you really don't want to give it up. You don't want to die. You want to just press on. And he says to them, listen, I know my Redeemer lives. Wow. And that in the end, he will stand with me on the earth. After my skin has rotted and been destroyed, I will see God. I myself will see him. With my own eyes I will see him, and not another. Oh, how my heart yearns within me for that day. Yeah. So Job believed in the resurrection. He believed in the life to come. He believed in that new and wonderful life that would be something way beyond the sufferings and miseries of this world. And he reminds us that his heart yearns for that, and that he is so convinced that life comes, that he's not willing to be fearful of death or anything else like that. If he should die, so be it. He's going to see God. He's going to be with God, and everything's going to be fine. So this was the attitude of Job. But the point is, even in the Old Testament, he had the confidence that there was more to this world and this universe than just this life and what we do here and what we experience here. So let's keep that in mind as we move along in our service today. Now we go to the New Testament in Paul's famous letter to the Romans, chapter 6, verses 1 through 5. Much of Paul's letters are about trying to correct mistakes that the earliest Christians were making. We're living today 2,000 or so years after all of that. But can you imagine having been in those first 50 years after the Jesus event, when the whole world was changing and going over to this thing called Christianity? I mean, that's a fresh time right there, 50 years later, 100 years later. That's not too long after the Jesus event. But already, the church was making a lot of mistakes. The church was teaching things and preaching things that had nothing to do with what Jesus talked about. So Paul was trying his best to say, guys, wake up. You're going the wrong way. You're not thinking right. You may be the Christians of the time. You may be the holy ones of Rome. But let me tell you, you're missing the boat way big time. So we're supposed to read the book of Romans to figure out how we're missing the boat big time, because we're living 2,000 years later and there's been a lot more mistakes made in those times. But anyway, in the time of this letter, the Christians at Rome were celebrating, we are free from sin. Oh, we are free at last. Oh, and they were celebrating it because they heard about grace. God forgives you. Don't make any difference what you did, when you did it, what you might do tomorrow. Don't make any difference. Christ has died for you and you are forgiven forever. And like most humans, given that message, they say, well, if it don't really matter, I'll believe in Jesus and then go on and live just like I've always been living before. And Paul says, man, that is missing the point so bad, so bad. Because the whole idea of grace and the whole idea of the coming of Christ and the whole idea of the resurrection is not about what you did or what you might do or you might not do. No, it's not about that. It's about a new you. You know, I say this every Easter because I want to try to teach people that resurrection is not resuscitation. There's a big difference between these two things. Resuscitation is just bringing back a dead body and it dies again. Ain't nothing to that. Resurrection is change, change, change. And if you don't change, you ain't been resurrected and you're not going to be resurrected. It's about changing an entire worldview that you had before. It's about being transformed. It's about being renewed. It's about being remade. That's what resurrection's about. And it comes from grace. Yes, it comes from the love of God that never gives up on you. But what it brings into your life is the power and the desire to change into the new divine being, to start living like Jesus and not like some grungy old human walking around on this earth. So Paul writes to them and he says, what shall we say then? Shall we go on sinning so that grace might increase? By no means, brothers and sisters. We are those who have died to sin. How can we live in sin any longer? Or don't you know that all of us who were baptized into Christ Jesus were baptized into His death, and therefore we were buried with Him through baptism into His death, in order that... Listen to this. Just as Christ was raised from the dead, we too may be raised from the dead. You see? If Christ is risen, I am risen. You see? That's where our Christian brothers in Rome missed it many, many, many years ago. And that's where many people today are missing it. If Christ is raised, then you are to be raised. So you better start cooperating with Jesus and find your new life and live that new life that God has in mind for you. And then the last verse says, for if we have been united with Him in a death like His, we will be united with Him in a resurrection like His. You just can't say it any clearer than that. Amen to that. So now we move on to the gospel reading. And as our tradition is, we rise at this time as we read the gospel. Today coming to us from Mark chapter 9. Jesus and the disciples left that place, and they passed through Galilee. Jesus did not want anyone to know where they were, because he was trying to teach his disciples. And he said to his disciples, "The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of the men, and they will kill him. But after 3 days, he will rise." But they did not understand what he meant, and they were afraid to ask about it. You may be seated. The key point of the gospel reading today is that one word I emphasized, will. Doesn't say, maybe he will be resurrected, we'll just all have to wait and see. No, will means it's going to happen. Nothing's going to stop it. Nothing's going to cause it not to be. It will, beyond a doubt, happen. That's the confidence Jesus had. You know, you stretch out your hands, you're laying on the cross, and some two big old huge Roman soldiers are going to drive an 8-inch spike into your hand. What are you going to think about that? You're going to remember what's going to happen. You already know what's going to happen. You got no doubt about it. Go ahead and drive those nails in my hand, because I'm going to rise. Don't you think I'm scared or afraid or nothing. I already know what's going to happen. I'm going to rise. Yeah. Confidence in the resurrection. That's what this gospel says. It's not just something you believe about Jesus. Oh yeah, he raised from the dead, that's fine. No, it's the same thing you got to have that Jesus had. You got to believe it. I'm going to rise. I'm going to rise. Jesus rose, yeah, but I'm going to rise. This is the confidence Jesus had. I will rise on the third day. It's going to happen. Nothing going to stop it. It's not in doubt. Nobody's going to run up and pull me down before I die. No, it's going to happen. I'm going to die, and I'm going to be raised again. And that's the way it is. I don't have no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Before it happens. That's what I'm trying to say today. You need to have that same confidence in your own resurrection. Because if you believe you're going to rise again, then the world can throw everything it wants to throw at you. Life can bury you, bury you, bury you, bury you, and bury you. Don't bother you. Don't mean nothing to you. Because you know what you're going to do. I'm going to rise. Okay? Well, that's the messages we have from the Scriptures today. So we go back now to each one, and we read the English and the Spanish together. Gotta get my program. Here's my program. So follow along with me as we read both the English and the Spanish here. From the Old Testament we have, "After my flesh is destroyed, I will see God." And then from the New Testament, we will certainly be united with him in a resurrection like his. Ciertamente estaremos unidos a él en una resurrección como la suya. And then from the Gospel of Mark, the Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of sinful men. They will kill him, and after 3 days he will rise. El Hijo el Hombre va a ser entregado en manos de hombres pecadores. Le matarán y los 3 días resurrectará.